G'day guys, I'm pretty excited to say I have just received the Excalibur, nicely double boxed. I also ordered there in the foreground, you can see the Graphene 4S 2200. Pretty excited to see what the performance difference is for that one. I'm going to do a quick assembly video. I'm going to run up a few tests with the battery and compare that to a couple of the other 4S 2200s I've got, just to see if it's actually going to provide more power. And in a separate video, as soon as I can get some decent weather and some spare time, we'll do the maiden and we'll show you the performance difference in the field. With the cardboard off, everything is very nicely packed in pre-formed polystyrene, and it has that nice soft cover on it as well. Well, there's all the parts and pieces laid out, and I tell you, the foam is probably the best quality foam I have felt. It feels super strong, really stiff and dense, really quite smooth. The stickers though, they've got like a dull sort of finish to them, particularly on the top of the fuse there's a couple of creases and crinkles. I'm not a huge fan of the colour, but the stickers are already on. I'm thinking it should make it easy to see in the sky, although the under the side of the wing really only has the black tip. I might be putting some additional sort of black stripes underneath there to give it a bit better visibility. I would certainly compare this sort of foam to the EFX, that sort of smooth, hard finish, and not a dissimilar wing, I guess, in a lot of respects to the EFX, a little bit longer. Standard 9-gram servos, quite a short lead, which is good. You don't have to find a bunch of extra space to try and tuck that in. The plug here that's got to go into is, I guess once it's on, but I would have liked to have a bit sort of a shroud, or a bit more of a traditional sort of looking connector there. That pin's already a little bit bent in the middle. So we'll see how that goes when it goes together. Okay, so running the length of the wing from this tip all the way down to this end here is a square section of carbon, and then two more that you might be able to see as a shadow here that run in more square section carbon, and then on the leading edge there's a white, I guess that's glass fibre, that runs the length on the front as well. So really stiff wing. In the aileron surface there's also some carbon as well, some carbon flat that runs the length of the aileron. On the tips of both wings, already pre-attached, is some skids. Like the wings, the tail sections have reinforced. I don't know if it's carbon or glass fibre, but there's one quite thick, a couple of mil through, maybe 3 mil, and then another mil through here, as well as through the surfaces as well. So the fuselage is the same, really dense, hard foam as the wings and the tail. Connectors attached, I assume glued into place, so that the wings will just plug straight in, and space for the carbon rods. It's quite a heavy sort of feeling fuselage. I guess it's a very big motor up front. Good ventilation in the front that will suck the air through and over the motor, and then a big duct in the back to exhaust that air out. And ESC is right in there in the path of that air. Quite a neat system here on the top. 90-degree turn, and that pulls up and then pulls back out of the front, which is quite a firm fit. Aerostar ESC. It's a nice Durafly battery strap. All the wiring is routed through to the front, although none of it's marked. So I might have to take a little bit of a guess on some of it. I'm guessing that's ailerons with the Y connector. I can test that. That is in fact the ESC as well. XT60 connector. And these two will go down to the back. I don't know if it's going to make a big difference left or right. Inside there is a soft padding that the battery will sit on. And some indentations here in the foam that presumably will stop the battery from sliding forward into the back of the motor. Inside the fuselage is some white plastic reinforcement that runs down the length and butts up on the front up against some more reinforcement that sits in behind the motor. Running most of the length is a big square section of carbon rod here as well, or carbon tube. And a nice tail skid on the back. One thing I have noticed is that I haven't got the slope soaring nose cone if I wanted to take off the prop for slope soaring. So I might have to give Hobbyking a yell on that one. It's a really neat design on the tailpiece here. The servos here are going to fit in either side of that square tube. Pre-fitted plastic, and then the piece on top is a really neat fit as well. With the tail plugged in, it is a bit of a tight fit because I want to get the bottom of the servos into the spaces on either side. And it's good that these are short, but they still need to tuck them right in, and there's not really any movement in there to slide them back, so I might have to just double them over in there to fit them in. Everything's packed in there pretty tight. I might just leave the screws out just for now, connect up the rods and make sure that everything is operating correctly before I screw it all down hard. I haven't added the clasp just yet until I've centered up all the servos and connected the receiver, just to make it a bit easier. With the two carbon spars inserted, just going to slide the wing on. It's a really quite a snug fit. And the holes line up on the plastic top. I'm going to run the V8 FR Sky with my Tyrannus transmitter. Alright, well, it's a couple of days later, and what I've actually been trying to do is get some of these. These are the clips that hold the push rods onto the servo arm, and two of them, when pushing on, just split straight down the middle. I know they have the full set of parts available in the international warehouse, but I was actually able to go down to my local hobby shop to get some Dubro, which I thought would fit, only a couple of bucks, but turns out that the part that sits on the arm and the distance from where the arm is to the end is probably just a little bit too big, and I know the size down is a lot smaller. So what I'm going to need to do is what I think I'll do is order some spares, but in the meantime, the weather is going to be phenomenal on Friday for a maiden. So what I'm going to do is glue them on, and I have some heat shrink that will shrink over, and then once I get some replacements, I'll pull them all off and replace them all. But it's a bit disappointing. The quality of this plane is pretty good, top to bottom. The foam is really good, but just a little cheap part like that, sort of, it's now taken a couple of days, and I still haven't got it together. But we'll get it together one way or the other by Friday. So on with the build and power tests. So there's the finished repair. I've hit that with some glue inside and then slipped that on. It's a nice tight fit. That's certainly not going anywhere now, but I'll probably still reorder some of these to replace it, just to be sure anyway. Little shout out to Andrew Newton. I sort of half borrowed your idea. Everybody else, I'll put a link in. Andrew has come up with a similar sort of fix with the glue and piano wire and heat shrink. I'll put a link into his bulletproof push rods. So here's the thing, I've pulled the wing, this one wing back off. Just noticed that there was a rattle in the wing when I sort of picked it up. And it's a bit hard to pick up on camera, but there's a square tube. Let me just pull that all the way out of there. So there's two square tube sections in the wing that receive the two carbon rods that run. And they're solid rods, they're not tubes, they are solid. And I don't know if it's a big deal or not, but the fit between the square tube and the round rod is just, it's not tight at all. It flops around, it rattles. You know, the wing into the fuse, this section here through the plastic fittings is very firm. I'm certainly not, let me just get that right in there. All right. Don't get me wrong, I'm certainly not concerned that the wing's going to fall off, but I just wanted to highlight that. Can you hear? I'll stop talking for a minute. I'll move the wing. You know, there's a fair bit of movement in that wing for a performance plane. Just something I've noted. So I've just popped the wings back off for the final step, which is to put the prop on, and I'm going to run up some power tests with the graphene and one or two of the other 4-cell 2200s I've got. The only other folding prop that I have had is on my ASW 28, and the props moved a lot easier on that. These have got a bit of play in there. I don't really want them sort of sticking out when the motor off, and to fold back smartly against the fuse. We'll pop that on and see how that works. It's a 10mm spanner, just to tighten that up. So test number one is with the graphene. I'll run it up to 50% and then 75% and then 100%. we blew the camera right off the stand. And I think the last thing I saw was over 700 amps, so 700 watts. We'll try another battery. So this is the Nanotech. I'll try to secure the camera a bit better this time. Just trying to get a bit of reflection off that screen, see how we go. And 100%. Here's the Zippy Compact. So a few final thoughts on the Excalibur before I maiden. Look, you know, it is a nice finish on the plane. It's a really good size. The assembly is really pretty straightforward. No glue, screw in the wings, screw in the tail. I've added the Tyrannus, and that was pretty straightforward. Just click through the wizard for adding a new model with a V-tail. I think I reversed one channel. ESC, I had the brake set on, and that was pretty straightforward as well. We'll see how the figures turn out on the watt meter. Blew the camera over a couple of times, so I know that this thing is really going to shift along. A couple of the annoying things, you know, obviously those push the rod clips. You know, I think for the money, I think they could have been a bit better. Very difficult to push on, and two of them did break. You know, just with my fingers pushing them on, not using pliers or anything. Really, apart from that, the finish is pretty nice. There's a few imperfections in the foam, but it's foam, so you're going to expect that. Let me know your comments. Leave them down below. Thanks very much for watching.